The 2018-19 Champions League edition marked the beginning of a new era in football. The 2010s were largely defined by the dominance of Barcelona and Real Madrid, but Ronaldo's transfer to Juventus, along with the emergence of talents like Salah, Mbappe, Kane and Lewandowski in their primes, brought a fresh sense of excitement. While many speculated on the possible outcomes, no one could have predicted what this turmoil of events would lead to. For the first time in a long time, there was a big list of possible candidates to win the tournament. But even though so many different names were being thrown into the air, no prediction got even remotely close to the level of drama and chaos that this edition would bring us. So in this video, I'll show you all why the 2018-19 Champions League season is the most exciting in the tournament's history. From shocking underdog runs to once-in-a-lifetime performances and dramatic eliminations, this video will make you wish you could travel back in time to this fantastic era. But first, and as usual, let me give you some context. Prior to this tournament, Real were the defending champions, having won the trophy for the past 3 seasons. However, with the departure of Zidane and Ronaldo, plus a lackluster transfer window headlined by the arrivals of Brahim Diaz and Mariano Diaz, many doubted Real's chances of winning a 4th consecutive title. Their bitter rivals, Barcelona, invested a lot in the market, but their squad paled in comparison to the ones from the beginning of the decade. Nonetheless, that didn't stop their new captain Messi from promising the Barcelona faithful the Champions League trophy by the end of the season. Then there was Juve. So many times they've come close only to lose it in heartbreaking fashion, mostly at the hands of their new star player Cristiano Ronaldo. Mr. Champions League himself was hell-bent on proving that Florentino should have valued him more and that Real needed him way more than he needed Real. Lastly, you had the Premier League tycoons. With each passing year, English clubs were getting back their space among the European elite. Man City and Liverpool had 2 of the best squads in the world. Man United wasn't as strong as in the Fergie era, but they had shown quite a lot of grit under Mourinho, and Tottenham, well, they were there. This edition wasn't necessarily famous for its stacked groups, but that didn't prevent the bigger clubs from struggling to make it to the next round. In fact, there had already been a few literal knockout matches before the round of 16. Despite having a strong start, Liverpool endured 2 tough losses against PSG and Red Star Belgrade that put the round of 16 presence in jeopardy. In their final group stage fixture, they had to go up against Napoli in an extremely unfavorable position. The only result that favored the Reds was a win, and even though they were playing at home and winning for the vast majority of the match, they suffered until the end. Alisson had to put on his Superman cape and rescue his club from a compromising error right before the final whistle, but ultimately they escaped by the skin of their teeth. Another Italian club with poor luck was Inter. The Nerazzurri were making their comeback to the Champions League after a 6-year absence, and they were hungrier than ever. They won their first 2 matches, and thanks to Spurs' mishaps, they were in a great position to progress to the next round. But Tottenham wouldn't go down without a fight though. Despite going their first 3 matches without a single win, they scored 7 out of 9 points in the other half of the group stage and sealed their presence in the round of 16 with a late Lucas Moura goal in plain Camp Nou. And all that Inter had to do was beat PSV at home. Talk about dropping the ball. But perhaps no team had such a shocking performance in the group stage as the reigning champions themselves. Real Madrid won every single group stage match without too much effort, except when they faced CSKA Moscow. The 2005 UEFA Cup winners beat Los Merengues 1-0 in Russia and 3-0 in plain Santiago Bernabeu, causing a huge upset. But despite that, they still finished bottom of their group. When the dust settled following the end of the group stage, there were really no shocking exits or surprising teams entering a knockout stage for the first time. At this point, I assume you must be wondering what's so special about the Champions League edition with merely a few upsets that in the big picture didn't really change much. Well, that's when the round of 16 comes into play, where you had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 teams making exhilarating comebacks. Let's start with Man United. That team was going through an awful lot. After a poor start, the Red Devils fired Mourinho and brought in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as interim manager. While the club's form in the Prem improved slightly, PSG dealt them a strong dose of reality in the form of a 2-0 defeat at Old Trafford. United had a tough mountain to climb, even more so with Pogba's suspension. But in the words of Oli, mountains are there to be climbed. The lack of expectations on the visitor side freed them, and even though PSG rocked their ambitions with an equalizer, Man United went into halftime needing just a goal to progress to the quarters. PSG kept them at bay. They controlled the entirety of the second half, but when nothing was indicating a change, United were awarded a penalty and Rashford didn't tremble. After all, they really climbed the mountain. One comeback that flew completely under the radar was Porto surpassing Roma. Not that the Dragons were massive underdogs against the Giallorossi, but the second leg in Dragão was one of the craziest matches in that tournament. We saw a grand total of 46 shots in a match that saw both teams take the lead of the tie at different points in time. In the end, luck favored the boldest team, with Porto scoring the winning goal through an Alex Telles penalty. Though that was one happy European night that left water in the mouth of all Porto fans, it was merely a prequel to yet another ass whooping at the hands of Liverpool in the quarters. No matter how many years go by, Liverpool continues to be the beast that the Dragons can't slay. But speaking of beast slayers, I really don't think there's a better way to describe Ajax and their heroics against Real. The Dutch Giants were superior in all aspects to Real Madrid, proving that Erik ten Hag's collective of youngsters was far more capable than Real's stitched-up team. The 4-1 result in plain Santiago Bernabéu might sound like it was simply a lucky feat, but if anything, Real were actually the ones who were lucky to beat Ajax in Amsterdam. Maybe Ronaldo was right after all. Madrid needed him more than he needed them. I mean, CR7 changed countries, but his desire to make a fool out of Atletico fans remained the same. Following the first leg, many fans mocked him, said he was finished and that there was no way Juve could reverse a 2-0 deficit. Well...
Palla in mezzo, colpo di testa, gol, cross bello per Ronaldo di testa, paratissima, parte Cristiano!
Ronaldo might always remain Atletico's biggest nightmare, but Erik ten Hag will forever go down as its judge, jury and executioner. In a preview of what we witnessed 3 years later, ten Hag dispatched CR7 and his Juve. In a way, this was the beginning of the end for Cristiano's European career. And fate would have it that ten Hag would also be directly connected to his permanent departure from Europe. But that's besides the point. In those quarters, we also witnessed Messi proving those who say he's only as good as his team wrong, carrying a weakened Barca side easily past Man United. But there was no more exciting fixture than the Premier League duel of City versus Spurs. Though the first leg was more of a tactical beatdown by Pochettino and Pep Guardiola, the second leg was worthy of a whole video. In the first 20 minutes, the lucky fans at the Etihad saw the ball hit the back of the net 5 times. City got the lead, but then Son, the hero of the first leg, scored 2 goals in the space of just 3 minutes. City didn't stay down though. 1 minute later, Bernardo Silva tied the match thanks to a deflection by Danny Rose, and less than 10 minutes later, Sterling put the citizens ahead in the match. Tottenham obviously trembled. They lost the lead while City looked confident that they could turn the tie around in the second half, and surprise surprise, that's exactly what happened. Tottenham were out of luck. They had lost Kane in the first leg and Sissoko as well in the middle of this match, but his replacement, the legendary athletic player Fernando Llorente, scored a majestic header to put Spurs ahead. But City continued to fight, bolstered by their packed stadium, and they would go on to score what looked like the winning goal in the dying moments of the game. Sterling has scored a hat-trick to take the citizens one step closer to their promised destiny, but it was offside. Once again, City's dream had crumbled in heartbreaking fashion, but at the same time, we were guaranteed a massive underdog in the Champions League final. On one side, you had arguably the two most consistent teams in the tournament facing each other. It was the last big hurdle Messi had to overcome to deliver his promise, and it was also the definitive test for the new and improved Klopp's Liverpool. On the other, you had a fallen giant that you would never imagine making it to the semis, let alone a final in our current landscape, versus a cursed club that couldn't count on their two best players and that hadn't won a trophy in 11 years. Well, one thing's for sure, both ties fully lived up to the hype. Liverpool pushed Barca to the ropes and exposed a lot of vulnerabilities in their physical game. Barca couldn't keep up, but the Reds couldn't score either. Ultimately, Barca won 3-0 and apparently put the tie to rest, but little did they know they were in for a rude awakening. Playing at Anfield, the Liverpool squad believed that maybe, just maybe, if they play their cards right, they could achieve something phenomenal. After all, the result from the first leg was extremely misleading, and throughout the match, they certainly proved it. An early goal breathed belief into their hearts, but it would take a master play to really turn the tie around.
Raw emotion of what's going on in this game. Early goal. Origi! Liverpool disconnect!
Klopp had one more chance to prove that he could indeed win a final, but what team would he face? Tottenham were without Kane and Son, and they sorely missed them. Ten Hag once again outclassed a bigger team, and they looked set for a fairytale ending in Madrid. And if there were any doubts, the boys from Amsterdam surely dissipated them with 2 goals in the first half of their next encounter. But you see, Ajax was a beast slayer in this edition, and this time there was no beast to destroy. Just a team sick and tired of being sick and tired. A club that always found a way to rise back from the dead. It happened in the group stage, it happened in the quarters, and it was about to happen again. And it wasn't the usual start that saved them, it was their comeback master, Lucas Moura. A guy that was criticized and punished with injury after injury finally had his big moment. So, Tottenham versus Liverpool. An all-English final, which meant that for the first time in over a decade, La Liga was finally losing its dominance. Regarding the final itself, I wish I could glamorize it and continue this video for a little longer, but really, there wasn't much to it. I mean, Klopp finally proved he could win finals and Liverpool were once again back at the top of European football. But wasn't that kind of expected? Besides, it was a boring match without too many crazy moments. It's commendable that Spurs fought until the end, but since Liverpool scored early, we didn't witness that intensity they got us accustomed to. It's kind of a shame, but that doesn't take anything away from the tournament itself. From a spectator's point of view, this edition had everything. Lots of goals, comebacks, underdogs rising, and giants falling. From a historical point of view, it marked a switch in football's power dynamics. The departure of Ronaldo greatly undervalued La Liga, not just Real. Players were less inclined to join, and the trend would continue in the following seasons. The Prem would only continue to rise and become practically the go-to league if you're a casual fan. And it all began in 1819. And that is it for the video. Subscribe to Throne FC for the best football stories that you won't find anywhere else. Thanks for watching until the end. I appreciate your support, and I will see you in the next one.